Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to post-process results from OLGA simulations with OLGA GUI and also how to create a professional plot using Excel. Plots are one of the important output which shows the simulation results. So it is imperative we get those plots to stand out from ordinary. So let's open up Olga 7.2.3. Olga is opening up. So let's open up the case. So this is the system which we created in the previous video. So we are going to post process results of this simulation. So as um, as told earlier, we've got this button here which allows you to run simulations using Olga GUI. This is a batch simulation. Before you run any simulation, it's important that you verify whether there is any errors in this simulation. You can see here it says verification succeeded, so it's all good to go. So the button here is the profile plot. Profile plot is the variables as a function of length. The button here will get you to the trend plots. The trend plots are those which show variable as function of time. So in this case, we are going to plot four important variables, which are temperature, pressure, ID, hold up, and we are going to plot them as trend plot. So you click that button and get that to show all the different variables and the file names and the branch node. This section here can be utilized to screen out variables which we want to and which we do not want to. So in this example, we've got all temperature, pressure, ID, hold up clicked up here. So we just go up here and select hold up, pressure, temperature, and temperature, hold up, and ID. This is at pipe 1 and this is at the well bore. So when you hit OK, this just generates a series of plots for you. The x-axis here is time in seconds, and the y-axis is what we've got as temperature, pressure, hold up, and hold up. So if you look at it, you can see there are wild swings in pressure and temperature. Is this swings real actually? Um, because our y axis for pressure say is from a very narrow range from 135 to 145, we see that the noise we get from the results are magnified. So how can we um, how can we not magnify the noise? The thing to work on now is to go and change the axis. So how do you do it? Go to right click onto it, go to edit, select, sorry, not select, edit configuration, and then in this series you can, for example, if you want to do temperature, so you select, instead of hold up, you pick temperature, and then go on to, this is the tab here which shows the data for you. You go back to chart tab, and if you look at the general, just says you, it's got just allows your animation and your pixels and stuff. If you go on to series now and go on to say general, then it shows you the vertical axis, and it says the vertical axis is custom 2 for temperature. So you go and play around with that custom 2 uh, scale, and then by that you can minimize the noise. So if you go back up to chart, go to axis, and I think it was custom 2, and you can select the minimum, and it says 93 for temperature actually. So let's change the 93 to say 80 and say OK on it, and say maximum, change and say 100, OK on it. Do the same for pressure, say minimum is about 120, say 100, and say the maximum is 150. And the minimum, we could probably say that as, change that to say 0 0.5. Okay, and the maximum you say you have it as 1. So close. And if you could see, there is slight changes in the hold up, and there are fluctuations happening in the temperature. So this way you can play around with the temperature, pressure, and the hold up, or to generalize it, you can play out with the y-axis, and change the maximum and the minimum value to make more sense, or to get the trends right. So what is the other way of modifying these plots? We can copy the data out and transfer it to the Excel file, and from there on you can customize it even more. So let's say data on it, select. So you go to file, sorry, edit, configuration, data, and you say do that, and that pops up a text box saying copy, and you go to Excel. That's opening up an instance of Excel for us. You command V on it, and you can say, you can see here, you can get your different variables in terms of time. So you got the data here. So the next thing is to create chart. So let's go insert. I'll probably do scatter with straight lines. Um, Select that, and you can go to quick layout, and then say do that, which will give you the axis when you plot it. So I want to plot pressure versus time. So time in the x-axis, and pressure in the y-axis. So say select data, add, and I just say pt versus time, and on the x-axis I'm going to have time. I'm going to select the entire data here and now do the same. Do the same for the this is the holder, yeah. So maybe I want to plot pressure, so I'll do that. Say okay on that. So now if you go on to this chart, you can see on the x-axis you've got time, on the y-axis you've got pressure. So change the axis, label the axis, say time, seconds. Pressure bar. Make sure they are at least about in 11 in terms of font size for your reports, and at least 15 in case of PowerPoint presentation, because it's very hard for someone to see your axis if it's not big enough for them. So we don't want to have this series here, so delete that off and make sure these are all black text in color. So now you can remove these lines. You can just select these lines and say delete on that, so these lines now go off. Now you can play around with the chart border. So to play around with the chart border, what we do, we go outside of the chart and right click on it and say format chart area, and you select border in there, and we say for the border it's no line actually, and go on to format plot area now. Yep, that's kind of done. Now you go on to format plot area, border, solid line, and you change the color to black and the width to 1 point. So if you can see now, the whole plot has got black border around it. We don't want to have the headings for the chart, just because the axis here should be able to tell the reader what the chart is about. So now what we do, we are going to format the axis to have uh, major and minor ticks. So we go format axis, select tick marks and say major type inside, minor type is also inside, and solid line, and say 1 point to it, and maybe change the axis to say 100 to 150, or maybe say 80 if you want to as well. Yep. And you want this text to be in black as well. Font, say black color on it. So that's good. So that's done. um, Now you want to add a secondary axis to the plot. You can club meaningful uh, variables into one plot rather than two plot. It's just easier for comparison. It all depends on what you're trying to convey with that plot. So let's say we wanted to combine the temperature onto the plot as well. So you select data, add TM versus time, yep. So that's done. So we plotted that. Say OK on that. Say OK to that. And if you go on back to the plot, you can see two lines. Now what you can do, you can right click on it and say format data series and say secondary axis to it. So that's changed now. So do the same major and minor ticks for that as well. So what we for the secondary axis as well. So what we do, format axis, color, say that's blue, say 1 point, and for the tick marks, say inside, and just say that to 80 to about say 100 odd. Yep. So that's done. And we just have to label the secondary vertical axis as well. So we go to design, quick layout, oh sorry, add chart element, axis titles, and we say secondary vertical, and say temperature there. Degree in C, and maybe make them all to 12 instead. So that's done. So you can also limit the x-axis to the maximum. We've got in terms of the so we've in terms of time, so we've got 86,400. So 86,400 would be a maximum value. So right click on format axis, say we wanted a maximum of say we wanted 90,000, and we wanted this to start at a minimum of at a minimum 0. So that's how it comes up as. And what we can also add if we want is we can go to insert, you can add a text box as well if you would like. So just draw a text box and say pressure, and for pressure yeah, you can have that in black, and you can also add an arrow mark to it. Insert charts, yeah, yeah, you can go to insert design, and you can rotate that as per your wish. And you can format the shape and make that as black in color. That's all good. And you can add the same thing and do that for temperature as well. Command C, Command V, and you can say color, fill that with blue. Just for in terms of these, you can fill this font color, change this font color on to blue again, just to make it even more professional. This here can be blue as well. This now makes your plots to stand out, and it makes the reader or the audience that the plot is pretty clear and it's very easy to follow as well. That's the end of this tutorial. Thanks a lot.